Selem, je suis la coordonnatrice générale de la Fondation Rambourg. J'ai le plaisir de vous présenter Monsieur Mike Gogan, le directeur de Virtual Experience Company. Et j'ai avec moi mon ami Ayman Gharbi, le directeur artistique du festival Interférence. J'ai rencontré Mike en 2016 à l'inauguration de l'exposition L'éveil d'une nation, l'art à l'aube de la Tunisie moderne, qui a eu lieu au Palais Qsar Saïd, au Bardo. Et un an après, nous avons accompagné Mike dans la réalisation d'une expérience de visite virtuelle du palais. Bon, pour faire court, l'objectif de cette session, c'est de mettre en question le processus de gestion et de mise en œuvre de ces expériences virtuelles et d'introduire notamment le programme de formation qui aura lieu demain. Et avant de passer la parole à Mike, je souhaiterais vérifier que vous avez bien reçu les mails avec les liens de téléchargement des logiciels. Et si quelqu'un parmi vous a rencontré des problèmes lors du téléchargement, Mike est disposé à vous aider à la fin de cette session. Mike, je vous passe la parole. Et merci de votre attention.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I can't hear myself in French at the same time. So, first of all, my apologies. I know I'm in Tunisia and I should speak, if not Arabic, at least French. But unfortunately, my French is very limited. It will be a very short presentation. So my apologies. And I will try and speak slowly for the interpreters. A lot of you, all of you, are familiar with the technologies to one level or another, and I have to say, having seen many of the presentations here today, some people are right at the leading edge of new technologies. So, what I would like to talk about is the use of new technologies in cultural heritage from the point of view of a small to medium enterprise, so a small company, rather than an academic institution or a university, where, let's be fair, the funds that are available tend to be somewhat larger. So I would like to look at a couple of particular aspects. What do we do? And when I say we, I mean all of us here. What do we do? Why do we do it? And how do we do it? The what do we do is actually going out and liaising between content developers, technical people, and the custodians of heritage sites or artifacts, and to try and create something that is accessible to as wide an audience as possible. The most important thing, in my view, about the use of technology is that it's the site that is the story. It's about the site. It's about the collection, not about the technology. The technology is purely the tool that we use to deliver the content and to tell the story. So I would like to have a look at some of the reasons why we do it. And one example, sorry, if I may come on to the next one. Yeah, sorry. Down, yeah. This is an example of one of our very early projects, which we did in 2000. I can't believe it, 18 years ago. And this was we developed a real-time photorealistic, or as photorealistic as we could do at that time, model of the upstairs of Shakespeare's birthplace. The idea was to develop something that would enable people who were unable to get upstairs, and it could be people who were in wheelchairs, or it could be people who had limited mobility for whatever reason, but to allow them to go upstairs and explore the house in the same way that other people were able to do so. Now, at that time in particular, if you imagine the scene, for example, you go along to visit Shakespeare's birthplace with your partner or your friend, and you explore the ground floor together, and you might be interested in the pewter artifacts, your friend might be interested in the textiles or in the architecture of the building and so forth. But as you're walking through the building, you're looking at the things that are of interest to you. It comes when you finish touring the downstairs, one of you goes upstairs, the other one is unable. Now the tradition, and I'm afraid it persists today, is that the person who is unable to go upstairs is given maybe a short video or a book of postcards or a cup of tea and a pat on the head, and you sit there quietly while your friend is exploring the rest of the house. What we were aiming to do was to enable that person downstairs to have a similar but equally valid experience. So we wanted them to be able to wander around the house and look at the things that were of interest to them. So we created this real-time model, and you see in the corner there's a diamond, and the way it worked was that the person sitting at the screen was able to use that to navigate around. So you press the top and you move forward, you press the left or right and you pan left or right. The center enabled you to rotate, and you could walk around the building. Using the buttons on the left, you could even crouch down. So if you wanted to have a look at something that was quite low, for example, the chest that you see at the end of the bed, you could actually crouch down and have a look at it. You could go and look out the window. You could look up and around, and you could go and see the things that were of interest to you. You could pick up objects. You can rotate them. You can manipulate them. In this case, open the lid, open the drawer, and get information. So the disabled person, or the person with limited mobility, was able to do something that their friend who was upstairs actually wasn't able to do. And I have to say that we were very pleased at the launch, where one person came to me and he said, when I was coming here, I was afraid I was going to see something that would make me regret my inability to go upstairs. But in fact, I think what I've seen is something that might even be better. And for me, that was a validation of the best kind. And we continue to do that in various other sites. But that issue about providing something that is not the same as being there, but is equally valid, applies to all the experiences that we try to create. Another reason for doing these projects is to show people what no longer exists, and of course we're all familiar. I'm very honoured actually to be working here in Tunisia now on sites that are, shall we say, somewhat different to the way they were in the original Roman times. This is an example of Tintern Abbey in the UK, and we created a reconstruction showing the abbey as it was in 1320. There were a couple of reasons for doing this. One was to enable the abbey, which is world-renowned, to be visited by people online, so it opened it up to a worldwide audience. But it also enabled people who were visitors to the site to put the ruins that exist today in the context of what used to exist. I should say, incidentally, that little curtain opening, that's an example of completely pointless technology, but I couldn't resist it. I thought it was lovely. So in this case here, what we have is a photorealistic model of the ruins, and overlaid with a model of the abbey as it was in 1320. And if you can go back again, you can see you can switch between the two models, which are sitting on top of each other. A couple of issues that came up during this, and again, just talking about the management of the project. while we were developing the reconstruction, we were consulting with the archaeologists and the custodians, and we went to one meeting, and one of the archaeologists who was there said, "Yes, I really like that, but along this wall here, there should have been a dado rail, and below that, the wall would have been painted red." So that was okay. So we said, we went back and we actually had to model the rail, and we had to model it around the pillars and so forth. And we thought we did a really nice job. And then we went back to consult with them, to show them. And there was a different archaeologist there who said, "That's a fabulous model, absolutely love it, but what on earth is that?" We said that, yeah. He said, "That's absolute rubbish, it's got to come out." So, okay. So I raised the issue with him. Imagine that you're building a house and you choose the tiles for your bathroom, and the builders put the tiles in and they do a beautiful job on it, and then your wife or your husband or whatever comes back from their work trip or their holiday, wherever they've been, and they look at the tiles and say, "No, don't like them, take them out." The builders will say, "Sure, of course we'll take them out." The question is, who pays for them to be taken out? The client or the builder? And it's, I found this quite a useful analogy when I'm dealing with, working with clients, because one of the things that I'm very conscious when we're doing a project like this is that we need to do it not just on time, but we need to do it on budget. And again, this is something that arises a lot, where we need to be very aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So if it's a research project with an open end and an open budget, then that's fine, we can do all these kinds of things. But if we are dealing with a limited budget or a fixed budget, we have to make sure that we manage the client. Is actually what we call it. Not to put too fine a point on it. This also raises another issue about ways of consulting, and this is something that's come up earlier on about what's right, what's wrong, how do you know that it's right, how do you know that it's wrong. And we have had some good fun doing this, because it's also a good way to engage the audience. In this case, this was a reconstruction that we did of a Roman villa, and all that exists today are just the footprints of the walls. And when we asked the custodians on site, what do the roof look like, what do the windows look like, they kind of looked at me and said, "Well, that's what you've got." And they had gone to a lot of, they'd done some nice work on preserving the remains of the walls. So we turned it into a little game. And so what we did was we gave visitors the chance to choose themselves. So, for example, what kind of decoration was on the roof, what kind of decoration were on the walls. So you choose these various options, and then you build. And in this case, the person chosen has chosen to say that the walls in the bathhouse would not have been decorated. Alternatively, you can see them decorated. And so this opens up a chance for people to have, and with a minimal amount of knowledge, to have a look and explore, well, which looks, because we know the Romans had taste, we know they had a good sense of proportion on their buildings. So what do we think would have been the right answer for this? So it's an opportunity for the archaeologists to debate the issues, and also an opportunity for visitors to get a little bit more, a little deeper in. Another project that we did was at Westminster Hall, which is the most magnificent building, UNESCO World Heritage Site, of course, in London. And in this case, we built two models of the hall. One showing the building as it was when it was originally built in 1099, and the next one showing it as it was when this roof is called a hammer beam roof, It's an incredible piece of carpentry, I suppose, when that was put in. And again, we sat the two models on top of each other so that visitors could walk around the hall and switch between the two views and see how it changed between one era and another. And with buildings that are, that maybe have multiple iterations, you could sit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different iterations, so to see how the building would have changed. Again, there's a very short video here because there was a discussion about the original roof, and some people thought that these pillars, these wooden posts, were there to support the roof because they didn't think that the roof would have been able to support itself with a simple construction. And some people thought that it would have had that it would have been a single span. And there was a lively debate among the archaeologists and the custodians and so forth. Unfortunately, to the extent that one of the archaeologists, who incidentally was not, we weren't involved in the conversation with him, but he ran off in a huff and resigned because he thought there was only one right answer. So, if we may go, yeah, excellent. So the key considerations for, just to summarize, for the project managers, what is the story? So if you look at it, if you look at a site, for example, we are currently working on one of the sites we're working on here in Tunisia is at Thurboub al-Majous. Wonderful site. And there's all sorts of different things going on. But what we're looking at, what we need to look at, or what we will need to look at when we do the full project there, is what are the key areas that we need to talk about? What is it about Thurboub al-Majous that makes it different from Douga or Boularija or whatever? So we need to work with the custodians. We certainly find that talking to the guides is really valuable because they're the ones who get the questions from the visitors. Like the kids will ask, where do they go to the loo? Somebody else, So what is the story? The next question is, who is the audience? Is the audience going to be kids, in which case you might look at different types of graphics, you might look at different types of characters. If it's for research purposes, you do something completely different. You look at much more you look at it much deeper. And as a project manager, the big question: how much have you got? Because I could go to Thurboub al-Majous or to El Jem or to Douga or wherever, and I could build a reconstruction of this entire place. I can have gladiators in the arenas. I can have chariots galloping down the roads. But if I've only got £10,000 to do it, we're not going to do it. So you need to set your priorities. And this again is an early example where we were asked to build a reconstruction of the entire Roman city of Colchester. Colchester was the first Roman city in Britain. They didn't have enough money to do the whole thing, or we could have done it, but it would have been so horrible it wouldn't be worth it. So what we did was we identified what were the key buildings, what were the key elements of the town, and in this case there was the Temple of Claudius, there's the Balkan Gate, which some of it is still existing today, and we also looked at some of the key artifacts. And we did, if I may say so, a very good job on that. And what we were able to do by approaching the project in that way was to give the client and to give the museum something that was really useful immediately, that was of value to them, that was of value to their visitors, but it was also able to act as a demonstrator for funders or future sponsors. So they were able to go and say, well, these artifacts are stunning. Why didn't you do the rest? Why didn't you do the rest of the building? So in fact, over a period of a few years, we ended up doing the whole of the Roman city. So taking your time, being aware of the budget, being aware of the time scale that you've got is absolutely crucial. So with all these things, we have to then also we also have to decide how are we going to do it? What are the technologies we're going to use? There's very little point in putting a VR headset, or a full virtual reality experience for a casual audience. If your site is one where you're going to get 500 people coming off a cruise ship and spending an hour on site, as happens in some places, there's no point in trying to get them to use VR headsets, because it ain't going to happen. We need to be aware, and I'm not going to tell you about the different technologies because you know what they are, but these things all need to be considered. So going down through all these things, these options is absolutely crucial, and it's important at the beginning of the project that you know what they are, you know why you've chosen those particular things, and that you develop the content in accordance with those, in accordance with that technology. And also, of course, bearing in mind that just because you decide to do something that is, like for example in the case of Colchester, because you decide just to do some artifacts or some parts of the building, that doesn't close any doors for you. It's far, far more likely to open doors for you in terms of the long-term project. So the conclusions on this section are to know your audience, choose the tech that tells the story, set up your plan, and stick to it. So that, if you take nothing else away, I hope you will find that useful. What I would like to do is I did say I would give some examples of some of the projects that we're working on at the moment, because not everything that we did was back in 2000. Although I am pleased to say, by the way, that the project that we did at Shakespeare's birthplace, which is there in that beautiful cabinet, 18 years later, they're still using it. It still works. It runs on a Windows 98 computer that's had all the Ethernet cables sealed up, because if it ever connects to the internet, it's gone. This is an example of which, for augmented reality, which this is a mosaic in the House of Africa in Elgem, and we've developed an augmented reality app, and when you hold your phone over it, the Princess Africa speaks to you, and I'd be delighted to show it to you individually or on my phone. We are also currently using drones to scan the site in Thurber Majus and at Elgem. And again, this is one of the things that really excites me, because what we can do now with drones was unimaginable even 5 years ago. In fact, 5 years ago, I looked at doing a project in Oman where we wanted to scan an area, and it involved bringing in a plane fitted with LiDAR. It was going to cost like £500,000. We were going to have to get F-15 fighter jets escorting it over the, I mean, it was just horrendous. But we were able to go to Thurber Majus, and I think that's a video, but it may not be. It is. With our little Mavic, we actually had two of them with us. One of them came through semi-official channels, and my drone pilot insisted on bringing his own, and he just stuck it in his pocket. It would have been really, really difficult to do that with a LiDAR-fitted fixed-wing aircraft. So what we have done here at Throuba Majus is we have mapped the area with a drone, and we're starting we're recreating one of the buildings, the Neptune House. Sorry, we can just go back. The Neptune House, and we have gone to the Bardo. We photographed museums that were taken from the site that are now up on walls in the Bardo Museum, and if anybody here hasn't been to the Bardo, you've got to go. So what we've done is we've digitally reinstated the mosaics on the floor in the reconstruction. And this will be made available on a number of different platforms, including VR helmets, VR headsets, so that people can actually see the mosaics as they were in situ. We're also playing around with other VR experiences, and I think this is a video as well, where you can use your VR to drop yourself into locations. This is a work in progress, and I apologize for the jerky nature of the thing, but it does illustrate one of the challenges of developing this type of content, because the more sophisticated it is, the more logistics and technical logistics there are involved in actually delivering it, which is always something to bear in mind. So I think just on the subject of VR, I've thought for many years that VR was actually a technology that was in search of an application. To be honest, I think that we are very rapidly moving now with the improvement in the visual quality and the improvement in the hardware, that we're getting close where we can actually, and we can realistically, within sensible budgets, produce something that really does enhance the visitor's experience. And I'm sure many of you will have experienced various pieces of VR in different applications. This is another use of the drone. This is one of the kids' teddy bears. We went for a flight on it. There's no way we could have done that with a LiDAR airplane. But he's not actually flying it, by the way. I am. Again, one of our recent projects, the first project that we did here in Tunisia, was at the Palais Said. And this was a very interesting one from the point of view of how the technology developed. As part of the project, we needed to do a laser scan of the site, and no doubt Fabrizio will discuss this, or some of this, tomorrow. So we scanned the interior of the site, so we have a record of the palace as it is right now. So and that could be used for restoration or for a variety of other purposes. But when it came to delivering, bearing in mind that we had a fixed budget, and we also had we were also aware of our audience, we decided that rather than spending many months cutting down the gigabytes of data into something that we could put into a games engine, we decided to produce 360 panoramas. Personally, it was a reluctant decision, and it was that I made to do it like that, because I always thought, because when I started off doing this stuff, people were talking about QuickTime panoramas, and I was much more interested in doing sexier stuff. But what we were able to do here was to produce something that was deliverable within the time scale, deliverable within the budget, but most importantly, it's accessible to anybody who has a basic computer. It's accessible, even with a dial-up connection. We delivered the project in 3 languages, incidentally, in French, English, and in Arabic. Just to explain the purpose of the project. The purpose of the project was to enable young Tunisians to explore their cultural heritage and to explore the influences on their cultural heritage. So that, even if we look around here, there are influences from Romans, from Ottomans, and so what we wanted to do was to get young Tunisians looking at their cultural heritage and questioning, where is that from, and recognizing that all these influences are what actually go up to form Tunisian culture, as opposed to Libyan culture or Algerian culture or Moroccan culture. So we produced this interactive model where people could explore the palace and find influences from the Italians and from the French and the Ottomans and the Islamic cultures and so forth. And we also developed a series of lesson plans and missions for teachers, and bang on time. And that actually says, congratulations, Mike, you're on time. But the lesson plans we actually delivered in printable PDFs. So we could have gamified the whole thing and put it all into the Unreal Engine and put on all sorts of stuff. But what we did was we designed it so that it is accessible to everybody. And that is it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mike, for this really nice presentation. Where really somehow I linked to it a lot, even though I'm in a ground where I'm working. It's a quite different tools that we are using, but you offered us in your presentation a variety of tools, and that we can do a lot of things if we have a lot of tools. But the most important question was, okay, what to do? What do we want to do? And why do we do it? And I really link to that, what I'm doing, because I will put it in a different question when we are building Interference, the festival in the Medina, and we're asking ourselves, okay, what kind of experience we want to offer the audience, and do we want to print a map, or do we want to give them a Google map where they can see the walk alone on the Medina, or because in the night in the Medina, it's really dark and people don't want to go, so we have to offer guided tours. So depending your goal, you choose the kind of tool, as well as with the artists. We have a lot of artists working with these new technologies, and they are trying to, and we're talking about the concepts, and we would be happy to talk about that as well, because they want to develop this sophisticated concept that sometimes we don't understand with the new technology. And then in the end, it's very easy to develop a similar thing with the low-tech possibilities. As you said, sometimes the budget is difficult. So I think I just recall that it's very important to understand the tools that you're offering us tomorrow in the workshop, and then also what do we want to do with these kind of tools. I would like to invite you as well if you have any specific question for Mike.
If I may, just to take that point, choosing the right tools, although you may be choosing something fairly simple, it doesn't make it the wrong decision. If you're going to put a shelf up in your house, you can use a piece of pine and you can make it nicely. You don't have to use ebony. You have to, and there will always be opportunities to use these sophisticated tools, to use that challenge the technician there will always be those opportunities. The point is to choose the right times.
Question that, not really. Okay. Mhamad Ali.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike, for your presentation. Actually, you raised the point of the two archaeologists who disagree on a certain point. But what if, let's say, you are building or reconstructing a church, and the archaeologists know how it looked like outside, but no one now knows how it looked like inside, because there is no data, no historian, nothing. How do you deal with that?
This is something that we've come across on a number of occasions. One of the examples that I had up there was Tintern Abbey. It was a Cistercian abbey, so it was part of it was one of many churches. They all had their individual features. But so what we did at Tintern was we went to other Cistercian churches, and we took samples and photographs of various elements there. But the key message that we had to communicate to the archaeologists was, we are not saying this is how it looked. What we're saying is, this is how it may have looked. And in fact, at Tintern, one of the items that was disputed was whether or not there was a porch on at the west end, at the west door, which is the main door in. Did it have a big porch outside? And so what we did in that case was we built a porch, and we put a button on the screen, and you could actually turn it on or off. And so with an explanation that some of these abbeys would have had a porch and some of them wouldn't have had a porch. Here it is with, here it is without. But the key thing is that in situations like that, we don't claim to make a definitive statement. What we're trying to do is to increase the accessibility, so that when people see, in this case, the ruins, that they can start to imagine themselves what it might have looked like. And then when they go to other sites, whether they're amphitheaters or cathedrals or Roman cities or whatever it is, when they look around, they can see things that they can then relate to, and they can use their own imagination to visualize.
Thank you.
I think we have another question. Two. Okay.
Hi, I have two small questions. First, would you prefer that these sites would be video recorded or done with 3D modeling? And the second question is, do you think we'd reach, or when would we reach a point where all archaeological and heritage sites would be modeled?
To video them or to model them. Fortunately, with the technology that we have now, those are not necessarily mutually exclusive processes. So we've been filming at Thobrouba Majous and at El Jem. So while the drone was up, it was capturing video, but it was also capturing high-resolution data that we can use to create a model. In terms of how that's used, it's very easy. We will give all that video to the custodians of the sites, which they can use in publicity material, and they don't have to do anything with it. They can just take it, maybe edit it down a little, and for little cost, well, no cost to them, because thanks to the British Council, they've paid for it. But so they can take that video and they can use that as they want. We can also use the same data to create 3D models. The question is, why do we want to make 3D models? And in this case, we want to explore the idea of reconstructions. We want to explore the idea of making the sites accessible in a games engine, so you can wander through the ruins and you can find information about it in an entertaining and engaging way. The other question about do I see a time when all these sites will be modelled? I doubt any of us are going to live long enough to do it all, but we can give it a damn good try. I know SciArc have a project where they're aiming, and it's a hugely ambitious project. They're aiming to document 500 sites around the world. There is, there is no end to the opportunities for doing really exciting work. And as the technologies develop, we will do different things. So, but we just, we keep on going. We choose the sites that are important. We choose the sites that tell the stories. We choose the sites that are will attract tourists, or will aid in the education, or will aid in the understanding of the culture. But so we just keep going. I don't think we'll ever do them all. But I see no reason why not to.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Yeah.
I don't know if I may, but I would like to answer the other participant question through my experience. The question was, if we don't know the church from the inside, what should we do when we are renovating? So if we don't know, well, first of all, we have to do our homework to search for old photos, old photographs for this church. If we don't find any, we can ask the elderly people. We just ask them, how was it look like, or something. If we don't even find any data at all, you have two options. First of all, you can use a very modern technique, like steel structure, which is very obvious that this was added. We don't know how does it look like before. Or you can search for similar technical materials, like other buildings with the same typology, and search for how did they make the ceiling, for example. And you can imitate this style in your church, but you have to mark it. Like you have to put a mark on each added material and put it that this was added through like an interpretation sign or something. So this is my humble opinion through my experience. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing your experience, Mike. That was very interesting. I would like to hear from you, please, from your experience, what do you think the limitations of digital modeling are in terms of sensual experience and emotions, hearing from your users, maybe? Thank you.
That's a really good question. I think, and to be honest, I won't pretend to be an expert on this. I think it's a really good question, and I think there are a multitude of answers. But if for example, I take the response that I've had from disabled people who've been able to explore buildings that were otherwise inaccessible to them, they found that, and it wasn't just one person, it was a number of people who found it a really liberating experience to be able to go and explore these places that had never ever been accessible to them. So in terms of an emotional response, it was a leap forward in creating equality. Eugene Chung spoke earlier on today about the memories. The reality, virtual reality, can put us into places in a way that we were never able to experience before. I was actually I was telling some people earlier on. I was in an exhibition, and I had a VR experience where I was standing on the outside of a building up on the 90th floor, standing on the ledge, and I had to move around 3 meters that way, then 3 meters that way, and edge around as there were birds flying and bits of the ledge were falling off. And it was truly terrifying. And no matter how hard I tried to convince myself that I was actually standing on a piece of wood in the middle of a conference room, every instinct of my body told me that I was standing on the 90th, outside a building on the 90th floor, and I was about to fall to my death. One of the other participants who did the same experience was wearing a Fitbit, and his pulse rate went from 61 at rest to 180. That's something you're not going to get reading a book. So the range of emotions that we can experience in this technology is limitless, and this is one of the great the great things that we can do is to, when we're exploring what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and what is the story, we can explore the impacts of how we can affect people by putting them into these particular situations. So, but yeah, great. Oh.
I'm sorry, Mike. I think I will have to interrupt the discussion now, and then we can continue to discuss while we're going to the exhibition. I just wanted to ask if there is maybe about tomorrow, the recommendation for tomorrow, that everyone should have their computers and the softwares that were sent in the email, or maybe you have, yeah, it's better.
Well, everybody has received an email, and I hope everybody has downloaded the software. It's going to be a pretty busy day tomorrow, so if anybody has had any problem downloading the software or getting it to run, can you please check as soon as possible? Both I and Fabrizio will be available. I would strongly recommend talking to Fabrizio because I haven't a clue how to do it. But please be sure that that when you hit the ground tomorrow, that we can hit the ground running and get as much value out of the day doing the modelling. So yeah, thank you. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Yes, some logistical. Oh. First applause.
Okay.
Applause. Thank you, Kanan. Yes, a logistical note about tonight. Please make sure you're at the lobby. We leave at 6 p.m. to the exhibition at the Palais Khaireddin. We got a special permission for an after-hours guided tour for the exhibition Abdelaziz Gorgi Pluriel. So please don't miss it, and don't miss the bus that will leave at 6 p.m. Then don't miss the bus that's coming back here. We will leave. The bus will leave you at a specific point in the Medina, and we have to all go back there, and the bus will depart that point at 8 p.m. So the hours to remember: 6 p.m. we leave there, 8 p.m. we come back, because dinner is for everybody at 9:30 p.m. here at the hotel. So we'll see you at 6 p.m. first.